This is the Hacking Real Estate Podcast, Season 2, Episode 4.
One is don't be afraid to take the risk. It was one of the things that I know when I first started, I was so hesitant. I had my real estate license, so when I was first looking for that first house, I looked at 100 plus homes, if not more, analyzing them, trying to think. I was a little nervous to even pull the trigger on submitting offers, but it got to the point where I'm like, I started putting those offers in, and ultimately that's what you have to do. If you want to do it, run the numbers. If it makes sense and it works, don't wait. Don't think about it. Just put the offer. You'll have time to think about it after that. And so that's ultimately what I started to do is I looked at the numbers and I'm like, this house works, offer. And you'll have the 10-day inspection period when you do that. So pretty much don't be afraid to take the risk. And if it doesn't work, well, you'll find another strategy, get creative. There's a lot of different ways in real estate to make it work.
Welcome to the Hacking Real Estate Podcast, where we dive into the stories of seasoned, hands-on, and tech-savvy real estate investors. We'll learn the strategies and tools they use to maximize returns and minimize hassle, all while navigating the rapidly changing real estate market. I'm your co-host, Brandon Hall, and managing partner of Hall CPA, and I'm sitting alongside my co-host, Vikas Gupta, CEO of Zibo. With our combined 15 years of experience in real estate investing and entrepreneurship, we're here to help you up your real estate game. Let's get hacking.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to this week's episode of the Hacking Real Estate Podcast. Our guest today is Steven Toth. Steven is a real estate agent and investor with 8 years of experience in the industry. With a degree in hospitality business management from Northern Arizona University, he's taken his knowledge of hospitality and joined them with his passion of real estate to provide a unique medium-term rental solution. He currently rents out 14 rooms in the Phoenix area, with his tenants enjoying benefits typically seen at a normal Airbnb while paying substantially below market rents and without major modifications to the property, typically seen by companies such as PadSplit. Super interesting. Steven, thanks for joining us and welcome to the show.
Thank you. Excited to be here.
So in your own words, can you tell us your real estate journey?
I'll start, I guess, how I kind of got into it. So my parents have been in real estate their whole lives. My mom was a real estate agent. She was in mortgages. And so growing up, I was very passionate. I had people, at least my parents would have people coming up to the front door and handing her money. And I'm like, how do you get it? I want to do that. So when I was about, I think it was 25, I was able to decide I wanted to buy my first home. And I had thought, okay, well, maybe I could do a rental. Maybe I can kind of just trying to figure out where I would go. What I kind of landed on was going and doing roommates. And so one of the big criterias that I had for my first home was I wanted to not have to pay anything to live there. I didn't want to have to pay the utilities. I didn't want to pay the mortgage. I wanted to be able to live, in a sense, free while I was there. So the way, at least out here, I needed to do that in the Phoenix market was I needed at least 4 bedrooms. So I'd live in one, I'd rent out the other 3. And at the time, the median rent for a room was probably around $600, $650. It was about $1,800. And I found a house that was about $240,000. I put 5% down. I moved in. My mortgage payment was $1,200. And so $1,200, $1,800, enough to kind of cover all of the other expenses. I did that. I lived there for about a year. And I realized, well, if I move out, I could probably rent my room out, start really cash flowing, and move into another place and do it again. And so I had kind of moved out, left a lot of my stuff at the other house, found another place that kind of met my criteria, moved into that one, kind of did the same thing and rinse and repeat. Now I have 3 houses I tend to refer to them as roommates, but technically they're tenants in all of the 3 houses. So done it over the last probably 5 years now, just kind of every couple of years buying another house and renting them out by the rooms.
Cool. That's awesome. That's a great strategy and certainly one that we've heard, I think, a few times from various guests that they got their start in, I guess the term of art is house hacking, but buying, living in.
Yeah. Started house hacking and then it was like, well, I could keep this going. And the more I kept going and doing it, the more I realized, at least from my own perspective, how expensive rents are sometimes, especially for somebody who's just moving out. You're looking and saying, okay, I don't maybe know that many people, can't find somebody to go live with or don't really want to. And so you're looking and at a studio apartment, and it could be upwards of $1,200 or more a month, and you haven't even gotten into account the utilities for that. Where a room you could probably find for around $800-900 a month, and don't have to worry about all of the additional expenses that come with renting a place, such as electric or any other type of payments.
And when we introduced you, we sort of mentioned you're not doing major property modifications. Tell us a little bit about that.
So I look at it from the perspective of from a resale value. So when I buy my houses, I want to be able to take that house, resell it as a single family home. I don't want to take a living room and convert it into a bedroom, a family room, convert it. So when I'm buying the house, it's very specific to, I don't want to make those major modifications that are going to require a lot of rework in the house. I look at it as saying I want to leave it, the structure as it is, but I want to make it so that it's still usable for roommates. So some of the common renovations I'll do is new floors, paint. I have a very attention to detail mind. So one of the things that drives me absolutely crazy is if the door hinges are painted. It drives me crazy. But so I'll go and something as simple as that, it's super cheap on Amazon. I'll go and replace all the door hinges because it's just like, it just makes it pop. Once I'm pretty much done with that, I rent it out by the room. Over the years, at first I was putting the standard entry key doors on all the rooms and actually had keys. But after the first house, I realized I hated managing 20 keys and had a key for the front door and the back door and the garage door and then technically 4 rooms in the house. And so on Amazon, they have electric door locks. So all of my rooms now have actual 4-digit PIN codes that I can go and enter.
Got it. So it sounds like the only modification investment that you made that's specific to the roommate setup is putting in locks on every door. Otherwise, sounds like all those other upgrades, even if you were renting out the whole house to one tenant or one family, you would be making them anyways, right? Paint, flooring, etc.
Yep. Yeah, and so that's one of the things I've seen that a lot of people do is it's like, okay, the more rooms, the more money. Well, I look at it from the other perspective. I'm like, I want to provide a high quality room and I can ask more money for that. So my house, my kitchen, everything is kind of well maintained and really kept up rather than, well, let me just say, you can eat in your room. Here's a little mini fridge. There's a teeny little kitchen that you can use. But other than that, stay in your rooms. I try to make it a lot more friendly of my roommates or tenants enjoying the common areas. There's TV. I provide cable. I even put Netflix and Hulu and some of those on the TV. I have games in some of the houses. A usable kitchen. I have a lot of my tenants who like to meal prep and will actually have fully stocked kitchen with everything that they need in there. At least utensil wise, they'll buy their own food, but a lot of times they'll have spices that they'll share amongst themselves. So it's can be a little collaborative as well.
Mm-hmm. So you're furnishing the common areas, you're stocking the kitchen, sounds like you're also paying for the cable or the streaming. Are you billing any of that through as a pass through to the tenants, or are you just adding that as part of the value?
All part of the rent. Yep. So they can get all of that. When I first started, I first didn't have furnished rooms. I did much more of a traditional rental type roommate situation. It was an empty room. You bring your own furniture. I charged a rent, and then I'm like, okay, well, I'll split the utilities. And the longer I did that, after a year of getting the bill for the internet, the water, the electric bill, and then dividing it amongst 4 people, it was like, okay, it's averaging $100 a month when I'm going and adding it to their amount. I just had decided, I went to all of them. I'm like, just take your rent, add $100, pay me that every month. And that was what kind of helped reduce it into just one payment that my tenants now pay. They don't have to worry about any of those other expenses. Now, the downside with that is in the Arizona market, we're, thank goodness, entering the winter period where it's nice out. So my air conditioning bill is low. The water bill tends to be low, having to utilize as much. But come the summer, it tends to eat into my profit a little bit just because now those expenses are a lot higher.
Mm-hmm. On that topic, so do your tenants control the thermostat? Do you have, or like, what's that setup like? Is it central air? Do you put mini splits into each of the rooms? Like, what level of control do each of these tenants have?
The tenants have the ability to adjust the temperature, but it automatically resets after 2 hours. So I have all smart thermostats in all the homes. And so if it's warm, it's probably not going to cool down that much, and they'd have to go and continuously adjust it. But I also can see that from my phone, and if needed, I actually haven't had too many issues with the temperature, to be quite honest. Out of all of the years I'm doing it, I typically keep it around 76 degrees in the house, which tends to be a nice comfort zone for people. I'll drop it, me personally, since I've lived at these houses, I tend to like it cold at night, so I'll drop it down to 74 after like 10 p.m. and then it will jump back up to 76, I think, at like 8 a.m. Other than that, most of my tenants haven't complained. During the summertime, I typically get a little bit more just comments of like, hey, it's warm in here. At least one house that I think I need a little more insulation in, but that's future project.
Makes sense.
If you own rental units but don't want to pay for expensive software, check out a Zibo, the smarter way to manage your rental properties. With a Zibo, you can automate rent collection, find quality renters, simplify accounting and tax prep, get a bank account designed for real estate investors, and save on rental property insurance. All of these services are free through a Zibo. Join thousands of real estate investors who trust a Zibo to manage their rental business in one convenient platform. Sign up today at azibo.com/HRE. That's azibo.com/HRE.
Are you sourcing tenants individually? Do other tenants have a say in who comes into the house? Like, because it's a lot of shared space, right? So like, how are you making sure that, there isn't conflict from shared kitchen, or are they sharing bathrooms? Like, help us understand some of that.
Yeah, so I could tell you a little bit about the 3 houses, and then I'll jump into the how I kind of go about screening and picking the tenants. My first house is a 4-bedroom, 2-bath home. There's 3 rooms that all share 1 bathroom, and then the master that has its own bathroom. My second house is a 5-bedroom, 3-bath home. The master has its own bathroom, and then it's a basement home. So one other bedroom is upstairs that has a bathroom upstairs. So it's actually like right next to it. You just kind of walk out the door right into the bathroom. And then in the basement, there's 3 rooms with a big common area and a bathroom. And so those 3 rooms tend to utilize the bathroom downstairs, but if they need to, there's that second bathroom upstairs that they can also share. And then the third home is a 6-bedroom, 3-bath home. That one has the master with its own bathroom, and then 3 rooms on one side of the house with 1 bathroom. And then on the complete opposite side, there's 2 rooms with a bathroom. Now, as far as how I select tenants, lately I've been having a lot of success on Airbnb. And so hopefully Airbnb is not watching this, but Airbnb guests will typically move into my house. And a lot of times in conversation with them, because I tend to meet them when they first arrive, I find out that they're looking to move out here. They're considering renting a room and just trying to find some place to stay. And so I pretty much say, okay, well, Airbnb can be your trial period. Tell me how you like the house. I'll typically let you know if I get a request from somebody else, and that's your time that you could pick. Do you want to stay at the house longer, or am I going to go with the next guest and have them move into the house? So that's how I've actually been doing it more recently. I have actually been looking at PadSplit a little bit more just as a consideration, but haven't made any decisions yet on that. At least for the 6-bedroom house, we'll have to see what happens with that. So.
Got it. Okay. So, and those short-term rental, like, are they renting for a week, a month, and then you're converting them?
Most of the time I do at least a minimum of a week. If I'm not getting much activity, I'll typically drop it down. I've been actually fairly surprised that even when I do like 3 days, most of the time the people that will move in are not staying just 3 days. They'll start with 3 days, they move in, they like the house, they extend it to a week, they extend it 10 days, but most of them will extend it.
Got it. That's like try before you buy, right? On both sides, right? It's rather than looking at two-dimensional piece of paper. You actually get the real experience. I think that's a really interesting way of vetting tenants, and you're getting paid along the way, right? It's not a free trial.
Yeah, I'm getting money. I'm making money on it. I get to see how they're at. I hear from the other roommates as well of, I don't like him, he's messy, and I can choose. I'm like, okay, well, no, I'm not going to offer it. Sorry. Or they might say, oh, he's great. He's quiet. We don't hear from him. And that's at that point until typically, if they're interested, assuming I would offer it to them of, hey, let's just do a direct lease and live at the room, and you get all the benefits as if it's an Airbnb, but now you just can. Typically, I also try to save them a little bit money from their Airbnb price as well. So it kind of all evens out in the end.
Yeah. So it's 14 units, right? Or 14 rooms, something like that.
I think it's 14. It might be 15 now. I might have missed it.
Steven, you have 14, 15 units, rooms. You're doing 3-day rentals, 7-day rentals to get the trial. You do the tenant sourcing, then you're doing midterm, 1 month, 3 month, etc. That to me just sounds like a lot of tenant turnover and a lot of time managing the tenant turnover. So I guess question one, two-part question. First question is, like, how much time are you spending managing this tenant turnover? My second question is, like, how do you think about the trade-offs between what you're currently doing and the time it takes to manage all this vis-a-vis like going to long-term rentals? Because where that question is coming from is we've had folks in the past on this show that have said, you know what, they started with short-term, then they went to midterm, and then they went to long-term because of the time, and they just wanted the stability of a long-term tenant and not have to worry about it.
Honestly, I would say averaging a month, I would say maybe 10-ish hours a month to manage it. Now, I might be in a unique situation. Most of my tenants have been there for probably at least over a year. I'd say at least half of them over a year, which is maybe a unique scenario with starting with short term and then a lot of them ending up actually being long term. So I definitely am fortunate enough to be able to not have to worry about these houses. I visit them maybe about once a week. I'll go drive by and make sure that things are all stocked up. I have a cleaning crew that also goes every 2 weeks. They're maintaining the houses. So I'm not actually having to go and do that. And then what's nice for me is I also just show up and can spend the time. Just if the tenants are there or my roommates are there, I can just chit chat with them, find out how things are going, make sure things are going well. And they all have my phone number, so if they need to reach out. But otherwise, I probably average max 15 hours a week or 15 hours a month, if that, of just driving over there, taking a look. And then, of course, with a Zibo, it saves me a bunch of time with the bookkeeping as well.
That's great that you've short term that turns into long term, and they're great tenants and they continue to stay. I mean, that's sort of like the best of both worlds.
Yeah, and I'd say most of my time tends to spend that 80-20 rule. Of course, the 20% is where most the few rooms that I have open in the houses have take up majority of my time.
And you're self-managing. I mean, we hear from a lot of folks that once they get to 3, 4, 5 doors plus, they start thinking, you know what, this is a lot. It's a lot of money movement to track. It's a lot of payments to make, bill payments, accounting headaches. They go to a property manager. You've done it yourself. You're sticking it with yourself. How are you managing all of this?
Yeah, with the Zibo, like I said, helps tremendously on the bookkeeping side. I do tend to have, as well on the more property side, tenants who've been there a while. I tend to give them maybe a slightly better rate than they would typically see for helping keep an eye on the house. If people have issues, I kind of put their phone number out on a whiteboard and say, hey, this is the individual you need to call. If you're having trouble opening the front door or something, just general questions of, hey, can I use this? Can I do that? I tend to have them try to talk to another person in that house as for guidance before coming to me. So that tends to save a lot of my time. And though these tenants have also been there a while, I'm fortunate enough that my very first house when I moved in, my very first roommate I ever had is actually still living at my house. So he has been there I bought it in 2018. So he's coming on almost 5 years living in the house. And when I first moved in, I moved into the master and he was in one of the bedrooms, lived there for about a year. After I bought my second house and I moved out, I offered it for him to move into the master, and he has been happy as can be and has not left yet. Knock on wood.
That's great. Do you charge differential rent based on, master plus private bath versus?
Yeah. Now being that he's been there as long, I knew him for years prior to him moving in, since he was one of my first roommates. I don't charge him as much as I probably should or could for that room, but it offsets with all the other rooms that surprisingly, hopefully none of my tenants are watching, but some of those other rooms are actually paying higher rates than he is. So it kind of helps offset that cost. And ultimately, I'm still profiting on the house, which is what I'm looking for. Or maybe I should even say cash flowing. So,
yeah, I mean, I think that's a common theme we've also heard on this show, right? Having a tenant who's been there, who's reliable, who pays on time, who takes care of the property, who makes your life easier is generally, the consensus seems to be worth more than, hey, let me see if I can push another $25-50 a month of rent out of this, because it's pretty easy to get a bill from a bad tenant, or rent that doesn't get paid, or anything with housing that can cost you more than $1,000-$2,000.
Yeah, and I've had some bad tenants. I had one Airbnb guest who ended up booking for about 2 months on Airbnb. When they first moved in, thought they'd be great. After they'd been there a month, the other tenants were complaining. She was very dirty, very messy, just didn't clean up after herself. And all of a sudden I got a notice from Airbnb telling me that, hey, she's not paying. And so I talked to her, and she was not the nicest to me. And so I did what I could, trying to help her, trying to work through something, but pretty much just told me, nope, I can't do it. And so finally I ended up, which Airbnb can have fairly difficult support at times. I don't know if that's maybe something you've heard before, but trying to figure out what Airbnb would recommend in this situation when they're telling me they're not paying, I didn't know what to do. So I treated it as if they were a standard tenant, because she had been there for over a month, provided her notice to vacate my room. But she did ultimately leave after the 5 days. I did not have to go through an eviction process. Now, when I did get into the room, it was pretty thrashed. It was very dirty. So I'm fortunate enough to not have had to deal with many bad situations. That's probably one of the worst that I had to deal with. But yeah, that was one challenging aspect that I've had with it.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, if you have 15 units and you're going through 20, 30, 40, 50 tenants, at some point you're going to, just the odds, right? Just the math, at some point you're going to get someone. But that's great that it's only been one.
And most of the other times I've had small issues, at least what I consider small issues. Somebody saying, oh, they're playing the TV too loud at the end of the night. And I'm like, okay, well, I text up, okay, can you keep it down? And that's about it. Most of the time that we'll figure it out. I try to set some of the rules at the beginning with my guests and tenants that, hey, this is a co-living life, respect the other tenants, be considerate of everyone else that's living in the house. There's quiet hours by 10 o'clock at night. Go into the room, wear headphones, that type of stuff. Doesn't necessarily mean everyone follows those rules, but at least they know about it.
You mentioned that you tend to charge a little bit below market. I'm curious, though, at a macro sense, at least, Phoenix is one of those markets that's seen pretty significant rent declines in the past year or two, at least from the top level data. Like, how has that impacted you, if at all, in the way you think about things?
I don't think it's impacted me that much. Like I said, most of my tenants have been there for a year or more. Right now, I do have my third house that I bought is probably been more of my struggle home at the moment. When I bought it, it was back in March. And at this point, the interest rates had already gone up. My mortgage is potentially more than I would like, but it's right at that range that I should at least be breaking even, making making a little bit. If you'll find I tend to be a little more on the cash flow side. So I was looking at like, okay, breaking even, it's paying my mortgage. If the house stays the same or appreciates a little bit, like I'll be fine. But what I quickly discovered with it was that the location is not quite the best. Compared to the other two homes. My first home is very close to a lot of shopping, very convenient to the freeway. My second one is also pretty convenient to a lot of shopping, close to the light rail. My third one, the closest bus stop is a mile away, and the closest store is almost a mile away. And so what I didn't realize at the time, and this is kind of a learning lesson for me, was people who are renting rooms may not have a car. So they rely on the public transportation. They rely on being close to a store. And so when I first got the house and started posting the rooms, I realized that I was not getting the same type of traffic that I do with the other two houses. So that house has been a little bit more of a struggle. I had tried to go to more of a long-term rental for it. Unfortunately, the long-term rental that I had there ended up not working out either. They decided to cancel their lease after 3 months into it. So they ended up moving back out. I retook possession of the property, decided to post the whole thing on Airbnb, and was fortunate enough to get a month-long rental, which at this point is my house that I'm like, just one more month. That's just one more month. But that long-term rental is actually ending on the 6th. So I'm most likely actually going to go back to the room rentals. That I did have a fairly good success with it, at least during that period of the lease ending and the long-term Airbnb guest moved in. I posted it on Airbnb for all the rooms as short-term, and I was shocked because within a week, every single room was full. And not only was it full, but the tenants were like, how long can I stay? And so they kept extending. I'm like, I need you out by I think it was the 6th, 6th of October. I'm like, I need you out before the 6th. Like, everyone's got to be out by the 5th. I need to go through the whole house, clean everything. But like 3 of them all extended right up to the 6th. So because of that, I've decided I'm going to go back to the room rental process with that house and see if I can get that to work again.
No, that's super interesting on the transit side and what the profile of the renter is. I was just thinking as you were mentioning some of those characteristics. All right, how do you manage parking? But then it turns out that I guess parking is less of an issue if most of the folks don't have cars.
And that was one of the things, at least criteria when I search for the homes. I try to look for how's the parking. So my first house, I'm like, 4 people are living here. I need 4 spots. It's not an HOA, so street parking is available. There's 2 spots in the driveway. I ended up at that house pouring concrete on the side of the house, so it added a 3rd spot, and then added an RV gate, and so there was a 4th spot in front of that RV gate. So 4 spots now completely on my property, plus all the street. My second house, I'm really fortunate. I have 2 of the tenants end up parking in the garage there, but the driveway is huge. A big, long wraparound driveway. I can get probably like 3 or 4 cars just on the driveway and not have no one blocked in. And then it's not in an HOA, so there's a fairly large front of the house. The front of the house street parking is pretty large. I could probably get like 6 or 7 cars up there. So most of the tenants there all drive, but like I said, no issue with parking. My biggest challenge is, of course, the Northridge house. That is my largest house with 6 rooms that will be available. I have 4 spots in the driveway that are available, and then it's not HOA, so I could probably get another 3 spots in front of the house before having to park in front of other people's houses. So there's spots available. It's a lot tighter if people have guests or somebody that comes over, or if they have 2 cars or something like that. So.
Well, great. I mean, typically you like to ask how folks are thinking about things given the market circumstances today, but it sounds like you're still active, or at least you were active in March, which was not so long ago. The interest rates have changed. That being said, like, how are you thinking about things going forward? Get the Northridge house settled and then back in the market active, or wait out the interest rates, or where's your head at?
At the moment, it's probably just trying to continue to get it settled and waiting out the interest rates. Now, of course, I think the interest rate on that house is probably around, I want to say 5 or 6%, but it was also a fairly large house. It was, when I bought it, it was 560,000. So it's putting 20% down. My mortgage is nearly around $4,000 on that house. And so that one has been a very tight house as far as it goes. Now, most real estate investors, I'm sure, are like, when's interest rates drop? When can I get a lower interest rate? And that's kind of where I'm at, of just like, okay, well, let's see if it goes down. The house hopefully has gone up in value with all of the work that I've done into it or put into it. So just kind of playing the long-term game when it comes to those type of things, of just wait it out, keep the rooms rented, keep the house going, and go from there.
And do you think you'll continue with the house hacking strategy, or at some point, you'll decide, you know what, I'm going to live alone? And
well, so I've been fortunate enough to now have a girlfriend. She's got a 2-bedroom condo, so I moved in there, which I told her, I'm like, I'll pay you rent I'll help pay your mortgage, and I'll rent out the room. And so I've been fortunate enough with that. We've been going strong and been very happy together so far. So that opened up another room to rent at the houses. So,
well, cool. I think this has been a great episode so far, taking us really through the nuts and bolts of, if someone else wants to do a house hacking strategy like yours, I think this is a great episode for them to learn a lot. So if you don't mind, we're coming up on time. Can we go to our 3 closing questions now? All right, let's do it. Question number 1, what is your favorite book? And it doesn't have to be real estate related.
So my favorite book, I'd say, is probably The Miracle Morning by Hal Elrod. I'd say I need to get back into some of the practices in there, but when I first read it, learning about how to first start your day and kind of get things going, I really took it to heart and put it into practice. And that was where I felt like a lot of things really started to kind of take off for me on the real estate side. So that, I'd say, is probably one of my favorite books.
Got it. What are some of those practices?
Pretty much anything before 8 a.m., going out, getting a workout, doing some journaling, taking some time to meditate and kind of reflect. I've used that time as well to kind of spend more time looking at houses than maybe sometimes I always do. When life gets busy during the day, I try to just, in that morning, I've used it to, okay, let me see if I can find a house that would meet my criteria and work for the house hacking. So yeah. A lot of similar things, trends. Hearing his story in the book as well was very motivational to me, and things that Hal had gone through. So.
Yeah, I'm still working on my morning. I think we just got a puppy about 6-7 months ago, and I think taking him for a walk every morning has been a good forcing function to force me to get outside. But I still, first thing I look at my phone, and I really need to stop doing that.
Yeah, I have a tendency with that too. But no, when I did do the mornings, and I need to get, it's a work in progress. It's always keep working at it. But when I got really dedicated and focused at it, I felt like it really helped.
No, it's good to hear. Question number 2, and you touched on it, but I'm going to put you on the spot. You have to pick one. What is more important to you in real estate investing, cash flow or appreciation?
For me, it's been cash flow. Appreciation is the cherry on top for me, but ultimately I look at it as I want all of my houses cash flowing. If they're cash flowing, it's paying all of the bills, and ideally I can make a little profit on top, is how I look at it. I don't want to be putting my own money in of money that I make during my day job just to keep the houses going. So cash flow is definitely very important for me.
Cool. And question number 3, final question. Anything else that you'd like to tell our audience? Any tips, any advice, any insight that we didn't get a chance to touch on?
I guess for me, the biggest advice, one, is don't be afraid to take the risk. It was one of the things that I know when I first started, I was so hesitant. I had my real estate license, so when I was first looking for that first house, I looked at 100 plus homes, if not more, analyzing them, trying to think. I was a little nervous to even pull the trigger on submitting offers, but it got to the point where I'm like, I started putting those offers in, and ultimately that's what you have to do. If you want to do it, run the numbers. If it makes sense and it works, don't wait. Don't think about it. Just put the offer. You'll have time to think about it after that. And so that's ultimately what I started to do. Is I looked at the numbers and I'm like, this house works, offer. And you'll have the 10-day inspection period when you do that. So pretty much don't be afraid to take the risk. And if it doesn't work, well, you'll find another strategy, get creative. There's a lot of different ways in real estate to make it work. And I've been fortunate enough to be experiencing that with my third house, the Northridge house that we've talked about. So.
Well, this has been great. Thank you again, Steven. Enjoy the conversation. I'm sure our listeners will enjoy it too. Again, really appreciate you getting into the weeds and the nuts and bolts and sharing numbers and sharing specifics. I think that's how we really make the advice come to light. So thank you.